Hello, I'm Bob Flounders. Dave Jones joining us from the greater Downingtown area. He's got a TCU Horned Frog shirt on. Really like it a lot. Dave, how are you doing?
Well, a lot of people noticed I had an Ohio State shirt on last week.
I'll bet they did.
I didn't notice I had an Ohio
I'll
State
bet
shirt
they
on until
did.
I was on. Yeah.
No one's buying that, Dave. No one's buying it.
Hey, I love my school. Do you have any Scranton stuff? Do you have any Scranton gear?
They don't actually have a lot of Scranton swag. Otherwise, I don't even know if they have like a bookstore where they actually have Royals gear. But I do.
They're the Royals.
Yeah, the Scranton Royals. I think I do have some Nebraska stuff. So I didn't go to Nebraska. I still root for them, even though they're a dumpster fire. But yeah, I understand it. I understand.
Well, I don't root for Ohio State, but I love my college at Ohio State, industrial design. I went back when they had their 50th anniversary, and there's a lot of good memories. I mean, I know it's hard for people to understand and grasp, but sometimes when you've got your college T-shirt on, you're proud of the college, not the sports teams. You know, the sports.
Say that, Dave. They're not.
Anyway, I got a lot.
Selling.
My nephew lives right next to the stadium, the TCU stadium. My nephew and niece, and down in Fort Worth. So that's when I got this. How many college T-shirts do you think you got? You got a lot, don't you?
I mean, I might have 7 or 8, but you have like over 100.
Yeah, all the places we've gone. Really?
Yeah, I'm not a big. Yeah, I just don't. That's not something I necessarily get into. But I'm glad that you do. I'm more of a visor hat guy than I am a T-shirt guy.
A what?
Visor.
Oh, the Pfizer Genetics, the flying corn cob.
No, like visors you wear on your
head.
Oh,
visor.
Yeah,
visor.
that and male thongs. I like to get a lot of those on the road too. So I can't talk about that.
I'm not, as Jay Randolph would have said, I'm not touching that with a 10.
I can't talk about it on the podcast because it's a PG-13 podcast. But maybe one of these days I'll let my guard down. Maybe I won't. Hey, so Dave, a couple things real quick. It's the Blue White Breakdown podcast. We're going to talk about Penn State. Just a couple things. You got to see him play at Michigan. Tom Brady officially hanging it up. A Michigan Wolverine. There's another Michigan Wolverine topic I want to get to with you, but it was kind of funny. Old Shefty had this probably nailed over the weekend.
Yeah.
The Brady camp refused to admit it.
Yeah.
And then on Tuesday, a day after he said on his podcast, I'm going to take a lot of time. I'm not really sure what I'm doing. He just came out with a statement today.
You know what happened?
Didn't even mention the Patriots in it. But that's beautiful.
Nick, my son, who, called me yesterday and we talked about a bunch of stuff, and he was really jacked up about the NFL weekend, about Sunday.
Sure.
And of course, I mean, it's just been, he's not the kind of kid who's been a spectator sport fan. He played sports. He played a lot of baseball, dabbled in a lot of other sports, even dabbled in wrestling. So for about a year or two, I was actually watching Penn State wrestling. I know they had a big meet where they beat Iowa at Iowa on a controversial match at what, 170? What was it?
Well, whenever two good teams wrestle, the matches, the degree of error, the margin of error is so slim. There's just going to be controversy just because of how good the wrestlers are.
I heard there was a fall that came like a tenth of a second after there was VAR or something. Anyway, I've gotten to learn a lot of sports because of Nick. But he's never been really a spectator sport fan that much. He went to games with me, but it's not like he's been a kid who ever sat in front of the TV like we did. But he is because of his experience with the Steelers. He shot video for us for the Steelers for PennLive for a little while when he was in Pittsburgh in college. He has really come to appreciate the NFL. And so he was all jacked up about this. And then in the middle of the conversation, he goes, is Brady not retiring? And I said, yes, he's retiring. He's simply wanted to do it himself. And I think a bonus is kicking in that he had to make sure with his age. And I'm sure that all the T's were crossed and I's were dotted. And he had to make sure he'd get that bonus if he announced he was retiring. And I think it actually kicks in officially the Monday after the Super Bowl. And it's a big bonus.
But he needs the money. He definitely needs the money.
Well, it's like an 8-figure bonus. So that was pretty important, and I'm sure that's probably why he hedged on it. But Schefter, weasel though he may be, is never wrong on this stuff. Neither is
Yeah.
Bruce Feldman, who's not a weasel. If they say it, it's almost always true.
Yeah.
And plus, it just looked like he was done. Didn't it look like to you? There was no reason to keep playing. The Buccaneers are not in an upward trajectory anymore, are they? Or am I wrong? It seems like things are
when you
starting
consider
to come
the age
apart.
of Gronk, you consider the they're going to be cash strapped, and Godwin, they might lose Godwin, and yeah, there's and time to do it at the level he's done it, man.
It's
And
amazing.
it is amazing. I was just going to ask you, is there anything that sticks out to you from, I know he played a memorable game at Beaver Stadium. I think it was in 99 where he brought Michigan from pretty far back to win that game. Do you remember anything about him as a Michigan quarterback?
Yeah, I'm mainly I'm mainly of note in this situation back then, or as around here they would say of note, because I was a big Drew Henson fan.
Number 7.
Yeah, and I was kind of he was drafted and played, had a cup of coffee with the Cowboys. That didn't work out well, right?
It did not. He stunk.
Yeah, I barely remember it.
It's a shame. The guy was an athlete. He just wasn't a football player.
A good-looking quarterback, I thought.
Yeah. I think he might have not processed the game quite as quickly as Tom did.
Yeah, maybe. Anyway, he had a good-looking ball, good-looking athlete, and I also remember my brother-in-law Fred, who was he was the running backs coach then. There was a big debate between him and Lloyd Carr, and I don't remember the Ersatz coordinator. I mean, Carr was an absolute ruler. So it's not like back then you really had coordinators unless the coordinator was the head coach.
Yeah.
And there was an argument, a fairly heated argument at one point, I think in the 98 season. Does that make sense? Of which guy to play?
Yeah.
And I believe Henson was gone by 99, but I'm not sure I've got that right. They did come into State College. I believe Penn State was ahead by 10 points with
on senior day,
9 minutes to go or so.
I was at that game.
Were you?
Yeah, they set me up there because it was senior day, and I mean, you guys back then, I think it was just you and Ronnie, and they very rarely.
Flounders, I want you to go up there in case something happens.
Like the infamous Alamo Bowl trip that I went to. Make sure nothing happens up there. All right, you're going up there for a week. Enjoy yourself.
You were Sergeant Schultz. I see nothing.
Make sure there's not a brawl.
Yeah.
Outside.
I'm gonna get that story yet. Anyway, yeah. I mean, that might have been in a way his coming out, and then the Alabama game in what?
Tremendous. I remember that Alabama game
or Orange Bowl. Orange Bowl. Was that 35-34?
It was something crazy. I think Alabama had that great running back who played Sean Alexander, and it was just like they went back and forth, and just a fantastic game.
That's when you knew you might have something. And he was, I mean, is Joe Burrow an impressive looking specimen? Not really. He doesn't look physically impressive. So back then, correct me if I'm wrong, I think a lot of pro quarterbacks, they were into the size, the Ryan Leaf type of guy with the cane.
Another great quarterback.
But wasn't that a trend back then in NFL player personnel types in the late 90s?
Yeah.
Early aughts, they wanted a guy who was big and could really fling it around. Kind of like Brady's predecessor with the Patriots.
Bledsoe.
Drew Bledsoe. So there were some strikes against him, and yet he just kept answering them. Those are the interesting times of Tom Brady to me, because everyone knows he was drafted with, what was it, the 199th pick of
sixth round, some
2000 draft.
Yeah.
And no, what I would like, there's so much written and reported about Tom Brady. What I would like is a story about his 2000 season with the Patriots where he did nothing. Because he did nothing, right? Did he even get a cup of coffee? They were thinking about whether to keep him in 01 camp. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
Or no.
I mean, it was what was the 01 season? Mo Lewis hit Bledsoe. They were like a 500 teamer. They were struggling a little bit, and Bledsoe almost died. Like it was he had serious internal injuries, and Brady took over, and he got a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better, and then, man.
But my point is, he was hanging around for a season before that.
Sure. Yeah.
No one's ever written anything about the 2000 season of Tom Brady where he barely played for the Patriots.
Sounds like a job.
I would like to read that at some point. Anyway, yeah. I mean, we said there would never be another one like Montana. Well, there was a better one.
Yeah,
it was a better one.
And I told you this before. You didn't really care when I told you. I'm telling you again. Jaywan Sider was drafted ahead of Tom Brady in that draft. The running backs coach for Penn State.
Yeah. Okay.
He was a quarterback too, I think.
Was he really?
Yeah, I think he was.
You know who I found out? See, you know how I found out I didn't know was a quarterback, and a guy who I think should be in the Hall of Fame, since I've been delving back into Bengals stuff. So we're going to transition into the Bengals stuff. We have to, right?
Yeah.
After that game, anything you want to say about?
At some point, there's one more Michigan thing I want.
All right, go ahead.
But what was you just want to finish your point?
No, because it'll take us in a different direction. So go ahead.
Dave, one other Michigan point. I just think it's hilarious. So this first Wednesday in February was always signing day up until they moved it up into December, early signing day. There still is a signing day, and it's tomorrow. And not a lot will get done on this signing day. Most of the great prospects are already, signed, sealed, and delivered. Not a lot of suspense. Penn State might add somebody, they might not. But so it's signing day at Michigan. Jim Harbaugh's interviewing on signing day with the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, that's just such classic Harbaugh.
And you know what else? If he had an agent, the agent would say, Jim, this might not be a good idea. But his agent is him. Did you know that? No. He doesn't have an agent. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I shouldn't say obviously. He's going to get some more money. He took a pay cut half.
Yeah, I think
Ward to do it on signing day is some special kind of.
I think Ward's going to come around.
Some special kind of jackassery, I think, is the word I'm looking for.
He's just a strange dude. You remember the Seinfeld episode where they go to see the ugly baby, and Elaine's got the crush on the doctor, but he's a great looking guy, but he's just strange, and he's looking up at the sky like this. She's just trying to have a conversation with him, and he's kind of doing this with the star. That's Jim Harbaugh. I mean, he's just a weird dude, and he's going to do what he wants, and you got to humor him.
Is there any chance he goes to the NFL? I know we're just taking a shot here. Any chance, you think?
I don't know, man. I don't have any inside stuff on that, because even the agents don't know. And anyone who tells you that they know, usually I can talk, like, I don't have a lot of agent contacts. I have a couple, and usually I can go to them and ask what other agents are saying. Because they usually know. They have a good. That's how Schefter got the report on Brady. I'm sure he's so connected with GMs and agents, that word got around. He knew it was going to happen. He had no question in his mind. But the problem with Harbaugh is he doesn't have an agent. So anyone who tells you they know what's going to happen is full of crap. So I'm telling you, nobody knows what's going to happen, and I'm sure Michigan is probably getting sick of it, but what are they going to do?
Yeah,
they might hire Matt Rule, and then some quite a few Penn State people I know might be a little bit pissed off.
I know,
because
I know that.
I believe they could have had Matt Rule had things worked out. I think we talked about that last week, didn't we?
Matt Rule has long been a favorite among prominent and not so prominent Penn State alums.
Yes.
But Jim Harbaugh is just. He's fascinating to me. I just think there isn't any more. Even when he tries not to be fascinating to me, he's still fascinating. And I don't know if he's that oblivious, or I don't know if he's that determined, or he's in a bad mood.
No, man, he's wired. He's wired different than everybody else, which is, it's refreshing. I've told the story about how he challenged me about Woody Hayes. But I kind of like the guy because he just doesn't give a damn what anyone thinks. It's not even that he doesn't give a damn. And Bill O'Brien doesn't give a damn. But Bill O'Brien has considered what other people think, and he doesn't value what they think. Jim Harbaugh has never even considered what other people think. He's in a different solar system. That's why I think, so many coaches have this rap. They have, and no matter who they are, they all try to do it. They try to give the loquacious kind of BS answer to anything you ask them. They're capable of doing it unless they're pissed off. But even guys as crusty as Fran McCaffrey, the Iowa basketball coach, or Cale Sanderson, say the Penn State wrestling coach, who's known as a badass, they can turn that on if they have to. And I think I'm right about Sanderson. He can do that, right? If he wants to.
I can't really say for sure. I just continue to, I am amazed by the consistent excellence. There's never a lull with that guy. These teams they always bring their A game when they need to bring their A game. And to me, that is the thing that I'll always remember about Cale is in a big match, that team was always effing ready to go. Like they never fell flat. They always competed. They're always in shape mentally. They never broke. And that's a big part of wrestling. But man, to watch them, the last two matches they had, just destroy, some really good teams, Michigan and then Iowa, both on the road, is just unbelievable.
Carver Hawkeye, a pretty nasty place to wrestle.
Daunting place to wrestle. Yeah. They got 10 points. They got 10 points against Penn State. And
I thought they got 13. I thought it was 19.
Whatever, 13. 13. You're right. It was 13. But and then he always is ready to have that. They'll wrestle at a very high level in the regular season, but it's an individual sport. And they always peak at the right time in the tournament. They always have, 4 or 5 kids in the finals, a couple of champions, and it's incredible.
It's almost funny that they keep a team score in wrestling. But they add it all up in the individual competitions. Right. Nick and I had a really good conversation yesterday. My son, who's 22 and still in Pittsburgh, he's graduated, because he was asking me, he said he wanted to understand more about basketball because he never really watched basketball. I took him into a ton of basketball, but he's starting to understand football at a fairly high level now, and yet he doesn't really watch basketball, so he doesn't. And what I said was this: I actually brought Cale Sanderson into it because I said at root, really, even the sports that are called team sports are not team sports like basketball is. Baseball really boils down to the battle between the hitter and the pitcher on every at bat. It really does. It's that one-on-one thing. Football is, while there are units that need to work together, I would say the offensive line is probably the most notable for that, or the defensive secondary, the units that have to work together. At its core, at the base level, it's like Bill Belichick said, do your job. And your job is the guy across from you. I mean, I'm sure, what do you think Isaiah Prince is thinking about, for instance? He's having some nightmares for the next 12 days, is he not? Of Aaron Donald coming over to his side. It doesn't matter who comes over his side. Von Miller or Aaron Donald. I mean, he's not going to be able to block him. They're going to have help. So that's a one-on-one battle. And then there's pure individual sports like wrestling or boxing or track and field. But basketball is unique in that it really takes, at its highest level, 5 guys working together. And if you see an individual like Russell Westbrook or Allen Iverson taking the ball himself and going one-on-one, they're not going to win. What's the common denominator between those two guys? Allen Iverson never won a ring. He could have played 100 seasons and he never would have won a ring because he was so hard to play with. A real warrior, but what's it worth if you don't play with everybody else? It's a geometric game. It's court geography, and it's the melding of different talents and skills in the whole. And if 5 guys work together, they can do anything. The greatest example of that is Princeton in the 1989 tournament, almost beating Georgetown within 1 point. Really could have won. How can that happen? But it's 5 guys working together. That's how the 5 of the whole of basketball is greater than the parts. And that's what I love about basketball compared to other sports. But Cale Sanderson seems to be able to get inside the head of each individual guy. And I don't know how he does it. I don't know. Have you read anything about that? Because it is an individual sport. and he somehow gets them to believe that they are going to beat their opposite number, whoever they're wrestling. I don't know how he does it.
From what I understand, I don't think there's been a lot of one-on-ones with Cale Sanderson during his time at Penn State. He's a guy that's I don't want to say he's guarded, but he's just into being a coach, and the rest of it.
You mean reporters?
Yeah, I don't think there's been numerous attempts, but I don't know if you've noticed, but there hasn't been a definitive Cale Sanderson profile written since he's been there.
Did you see the thing on Big Ten Network about the Iowa coaches, the brothers?
No. Oh, the Brands.
Brothers?
Yeah.
They're
a little crazy.
It?
No, I know they're crazy.
They're batshit crazy. I mean, they really are.
Yeah.
It was kind of spooky.
Yeah.
I think that's the devotion and dedication and the type of personality that it requires.
The eyes always give it away when you look at those guys. The eyes always give it away. You always know, hey, tread lightly around some guys. It's always in the eyes, man. And if you notice, a lot of them, just like true predators, the eyes are closer to the middle of the head, and they're not on the periphery because they're not the ones being chased. They're doing the chasing.
Like Harbaugh.
The true killers, with the eyes are closer together, look out, stay away.
Like Harbaugh.
Just
That's
stay
why
away.
He's shark face.
He's
the most feared predator in the state.
One more Big Ten note involving a former Penn State great, Bobby Engram, now Wisconsin offensive coordinator. You know him well. He was with the Ravens a long time. Hell of a receiver at Penn State. Hell of a receiver in the NFL. He's been coaching a long time. Going to Wisconsin. Offensive coordinator, presumably to work with Graham Mertz. I wish Bobby Engram all the success in the world with that, but I don't. It might be the phrase "swimming upstream" might apply here.
Well,
as he tries to crack the code with Graham Mertz.
It's not Graham Mertz, man. I mean, Graham Mertz.
It is Graham Mertz.
No, it's not. I mean, the only guy who's cracked the code to be cracked is with Wisconsin. Because Wisconsin's personality and its trade, its brand is so ingrained in that place. Graham Mertz was a 5-star recruit. Do you understand that?
I do. I also saw the Penn State game this year where he literally.
I know.
It was him.
The only guy who's ever gone in there and undone the brand of Wisconsin and broken out of that mold is Russell Wilson, who really started out at NC State. And maybe that's why. I don't know. But once you immerse yourself in that brand, there's something to be said for that. Wisconsin football knows exactly what it is.
I know.
I don't think you can fight it. I think there's something to be said for Michigan. Michigan couldn't be what it wasn't. When Rich Rodriguez went in there and tried to do that, that wasn't Michigan football. To Harbaugh's credit, he did instill that running game and defense mentality at Michigan. He didn't try to get away from that because that's what the locals want, man. And very frankly, it's probably what Penn State fans want too. Don't you think they would be happy with a running game and defense oriented football team? And they haven't had it.
I think they would prefer winning 21-17 over, winning 34-31 or losing 34-31. Yeah.
Oh, okay. But how would they like to win? I don't know. We saw a different way of winning in 2016, in 2017.
And they weren't even happy about that because
they weren't really. They wanted the fullback in. That's what I'm telling you. So there is something to be said for Wisconsin's brand, and it's indelible. I mean, and maybe when Barry Alvarez finally dies, maybe that'll let go. I'm just saying that he's the guy. He's the man who put it together.
I know.
He is the man. You could say Dave McClain began it, but man, that whole ethos began with Barry, and he's still there running the show. He's not now. He finally retired, but
it's too bad that I don't think Wisconsin and Penn State play this year, so there won't be any chance maybe to talk to Bobby, but it would be great to see him come back to Beaver Stadium.
Where's Gary Brown? I didn't see.
I can't. I think he's still on the staff, isn't he? Isn't he still?
So they'll work together. Yeah,
I would assume so. Yeah,
that's interesting.
Very interesting. But yeah, let's just from afar. I'll be just curious to see. I'm still going to be watching Graham Mertz this year, man. Even if we don't play him, because he's just
get off Graham.
He's in my head. He's in my head now, Dave.
It's like a Morelli thing with you. In fact, you always pick out some Big Ten quarterback and start torturing him, from afar.
But my in though, I had it in because Bobby Ingram's now at Wisconsin, so I could go right back at him.
It began with Ricky Stanzi, I think, and it's grown ever since. It's always Iowa and Wisconsin quarterbacks you have a problem with.
All right, Blue White Breakdown podcast. 2 things to get to. I'll go. Let's go with. You were talking before the podcast started a little bit. Just your thoughts on Penn State basketball, the big win over Iowa, and what kind of impressed you?
Look, this is an unsightly team, and Micah Shrewsbury has nothing to work with. It's a transitional team. He got his whole roster picked apart because of defections. After the departure of Jim Ferry, and I don't know if they would have stuck around for him, but anyway, they were Pat Chambers guys. They never explained what happened, and they were ready to be out the door. And the guy who's really hurt, they could be an NCAA team if they had one guy who defected late, and that's Isaiah Brockington. I don't know if you've noticed, but he's been a terror for Iowa State. He's the best player on their team. He's a mature player. If they still had him, four different guys defected. Myron Jones left, and I can't remember who else. But anyway, if they'd been able to hang on to him, they would have been. They're not an NCAA team by any measure. In fact, I thought they were like a 5-15, 6-14 team, and now they are 4-6 after a double overtime win over Iowa. There is a play at the end of regulation. I don't know if you saw it, where Keegan Murray. It's an amazing play. Jordan Bohannon shoots a 3 to win it at the end of regulation. Iowa's down 2. He gets a 3 from about 25 feet, hoists it. It was heavily guarded. It's not going in. Keegan Murray comes from across the lane, underneath the basket, and is gliding across the basket frame underneath, and manages to hit it tip it in control, mind you, as he's floating across away from the basket, and tip it in at the buzzer with 0.2 of a second to force it into overtime. I mean, it was an amazing play. And Keegan Murray is going to be in the NBA. I don't know if his brother is. He's got a twin brother named Chris. But Keegan Murray is a serious player. These are the guys that Penn State does not have on this team. They don't have any NBA players. Sent into overtime. Iowa got a lead in overtime. Penn State fought back. They got a couple of guys, and Jalen Pickett and Sam Sessoms, who are little guards. They're mid-major guards, who they're the kind of guys you see in the NCAA tournament where you say, I never knew these guys existed. Well, they transferred from mid-major programs, and that's why they're at Penn State. But Jalen Pickett's like Earl Monroe. When he gets a guy on his hip and swivels, he did that with a couple of plays near the end. Sessom scored a couple of hoops. They win the game in double overtime. And it was a game they had no business winning, really. And that's what I think Micah Shrewsbury really knows what he's doing. They're 9-9, 4-6 in the Big Ten, and they should be about 2-8, headed for 5-15. But Ken Palm has them pointed at 9-11 in the Big Ten. I don't know if that's going to happen. I keep doubting it, but they keep going in that direction. They have a fairly manageable schedule going forward. They've gotten through the hardest part of the schedule, and it could happen. I think the guy really knows what he's doing.
All right. I'm going to continue to check in with you on the Penn State basketball front. Dave, before we go, it's Tuesday. We're 12 days away from the Super Bowl. Bengals at Rams. It's technically a Rams home game, even though the Bengals are the home team. Two really good games again in the championship game round. We know about your Ohio ties. You said you were not going to jump on the Bengals bandwagon. It wouldn't be appropriate. But where are you headwise with these Joe Burrow Bengals after they stunned the Chiefs? And what are you going to be writing? Anything else? Are you going to make a prediction on the game? Are you going to leave it alone? What are you going to do?
No, I mean, I want to ask you, since we haven't talked about the game. Yep. At what point did you think the Bengals were going to win that game?
I was really surprised that it seemed like a small thing at the time, but when the Chiefs butchered the final 5 seconds of that drive, I thought that's usually a tell, right? That's usually a tell that something wasn't right there, and the Bengals still had a lot of work to do. I just could not get over. I think it was all Mahomes. I don't think it was Andy Reid's fault. I think Andy Reid said, "Look, if it's not there right away, throw it out."
Hey, he's the boss, man. Don't get greedy. I know Mahomes wanted to do it, but Andy's the boss, and Andy just should have said,
"Yeah,
no, man. Let's kick the field goal, get the points. It's important."
But that empty possession right there in a game, and in a game of that with stakes like that, and even though they were up big, the Bengals have firepower, man. If Burrow gets time, or they block the Chiefs front, and Mixon gets loose, and Chase is unbelievable. Everyone talks about, look at the Chiefs, look at the triplets. The Cowboys had, Michael Irvin, Emmitt Smith, Troy Aikman. The Chiefs have Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, and Kelsey. How about the Bengals? They have legit triplets. They have Mixon, Burrow, and Chase in all the right spots.
But you know what?
They're not even talking about them.
They don't have that Cowboys offensive line from the early 90s.
They do not. That is also true. But in terms of just blue chip talent, those guys are already the best in the conversation. To Joe Mixon, even though he was a jerk at Oklahoma, is a hell of a talent.
Yeah.
A hell of a talent. And I just think that when you have three players like that, and the other team's going to start not making mistakes. And also, no one's really talking about the Bengals defense, Dave. They played really well against the Titans. They got some turnovers. They played well against the Raiders. I mean, for a defense that gets overlooked, I think they're very well coached, and they're very opportunistic, and it showed up throughout the playoffs.
You know who has shown up is Trey Hendrickson.
Yeah.
Did you know too much about him before this game? You don't watch a lot of Bengals.
No, not a lot. I knew that the safety Bates was good, and he made some plays. I know he made a big play. I think a play or two maybe in the game against the Titans. But that's a defense that'll hang in there. I'm still mystified by how the Rams, like a month ago, signed a 37-year-old safety that hadn't played for 2 years. Eric Weddle, I think his name is, and he's played like every snap in every game, and he's playing at a high level. He's 37.
Maybe he got a rest.
Huh?
Maybe he needed a rest and got a rest.
It's amazing though that he was able to play at that level at that age.
I want to get this in before we leave because we're pressed for time here.
Get it in then.
What impressed me about Burrow is what he didn't do when they were down 21-3. And he could have pressed, especially at his age, a second-year quarterback.
Yeah.
He could have pressed. He could have rushed. He could have made the bad play that would have really ended the game at that point. It's 21-3. There's 3 or 4 minutes left in the game. He threw a couple away. He's getting rushed. They're pouring in on him. Chris Jones and all those guys are pouring in on him. And then he just kept them alive, man. He just kept alive. He hit T. Higgins on a little 8-yard.
What a player. No one talks about him. Great player.
Right, a very good receiver. For an 8-yard gain to convert a 3rd and 5. Got him to midfield, hit another pass to Higgins that was about 15-yard crossing route. They're still only on the 41. There's like a minute and a half to go. And then they get the ball to P. Ryan, the Oklahoma kid, last seen breaking the NCAA rushing record, rushing record, with 427 yards and 6 touchdowns against Kansas, if that counts.
Doesn't count.
And he made it a hell of a play. You know what else they do? They downfield block. Jamar Chase made a terrific block at about the 15-yard line, and P. Ryan cut inside him. And that's a huge score at that point. Okay. They didn't just get a field goal. They got a touchdown. It's 21-10. The whole vibe in that place changed then and in the subsequent drive when they got greedy and didn't get the field goal. And then I felt like, well, maybe they got a chance. Maybe they got a prayer. That's what Joe Burrow gives you. Yeah. He is not going to make the play that kills you. He's going to keep you alive in situations like that. And man, that's a kid with poise.
Yeah.
That's a guy, not just with the magic and the ability to see the field, but the sense and the poise to not do the wrong thing when things are going bad. That's an important guy.
I don't think we're done hearing from you or reading some stuff about this Super Bowl. I look forward to it, Dave. I look forward to it. And I'm sure you're going to write something, win, lose, or draw, after the game as well. And
I've been revitalized on the NFL, and I didn't feel like this 3 or 4 years ago. I think it's a really good product right now.
You know what? It's going to make it even better next year, Dave, when Jim Harbaugh coaches the Vikings, and you can write about that. Then you're going to be all in on Shark Face too.
He's not going to go to Minnesota. He's coming back. Don't you think he's coming back? I think this is bargaining. I think he's getting the price up from Ward Manuel, and he's not as expedient as some agent, because he's not an agent, but he's his agent. So,
Dave, I just want to wish you, tomorrow is second signing day. I want to wish you a happy signing day. We'll talk next week. Daniel Gallen and I will be back later in the week to review. James Franklin's got a news conference tomorrow to talk about signing day, but also a wrap up to the 2021 season. Gee, I wonder what they're going to ask him about. But I mean, it's just, can we just talk about 22 already? But I guess we can't. So we'll get to the bottom of some things on signing day. But we'll talk to you next week. Enjoy the calm before the Super Bowl storm a week from Sunday. I know you're starting to get excited.
You going to a party? You don't go to parties, do you?
You know what?
What do you do on Super Bowl Sunday?
What I have noticed, Dave, is a lot of people do not go out on Super Bowl Sunday. Because the game starts late, and Monday you got to work Monday. But people really like to have Super Bowl parties and have all their friends around. The Super Bowl block pools are crazy. People love to do those things. So
yeah, but where do you go?
I'm mulling my options, but it's probably going to be a house party.
Okay.
Yeah,
because this is a big day for
that way. Yeah, I can pass out on the front lawn. You know what I mean?
We're going way long, but I got to ask you this because I'm just curious.
Yeah,
this is a big day for you, and you really want to hone in on the game, don't you?
I do.
And at Super Bowl parties, there's always these people who don't care. There's a lot of people who don't care at all.
But a lot of the parties, only the people that really want to watch the game are invited. So,
okay, all right.
Plus, you have a million prop bets, and that always, I think, it's fascinating to me. You can literally bet on anything.
You should write about that.
It's been written. Our man Greg Pickle, you need to talk to him. Text him about some of his Super Bowl prop bets, because he is like a kid in a candy store.
Is he good at it?
I wouldn't say he's good. He's very active, though. He is. He's going to pull the trigger on like 47 prop.
You know what they call that in basketball? They call that a volume scorer. It doesn't mean he's a good shooter.
He's the Russell Westbrook of prop bettors, but he will bet on the timing of the national anthem. It's a Greg Pickle tradition. He's either going to take the over or under, and it's gonna really shape the day before the game even starts.
Maybe somebody should follow you guys around. Oh, we got to wrap this up. Sorry.
All right, Dave. I'll see you next week.
All right, man.